तो अब इस जो डायग्राम में येलो कलर का स्ट्रक्चर है, दैट इज पैनक्रियास। उसको मेनली हम 4 पार्ट्स में डिवाइड करते हैं, हेड, नेक, बॉडी एंड टेल। Now this pancreas mainly lies behind the second part of duodenum. जैसे दिख रहा है साइड में जो ट्यूबुलर स्ट्रक्चर आ रहा है वो duodenum है, और duodenum क्या होता है, स्मॉल इंटेस्टाइन का पार्ट होता है। अब ये जो पैनक्रियाज है ये ट्राइंगुलर स्ट्रक्चर है जो ऑलमोस्ट इसके पीछे होता है, और इसके 4 पार्ट्स होते हैं, हेड, नेक, बॉडी एंड टेल। So pancreas is a triangular gland and it has both the exocrine cells and the endocrine cells. तो जो exocrine part है वो तुम पढ़ चुके हो, it mainly produces pancreatic juice, okay, जो acinar cells produce करते हैं। Now we have the pancreatic islets or the islets of Langerhans which produce hormones, and this is the endocrine part. तो इसमें दिखाया है कि ऊपर तो स्टमक है, कुछ पार्ट पैनक्रियाज का स्टमक के पीछे है और कुछ पार्ट जो है वो ड्यूडेनम के पीछे है। अब जैसे इसमें तुम देख रहे हो एक ग्रीन कलर का डक्ट फ्लो कर रहा है पैनक्रियाज में, वो होता है मेन पैनक्रियाटिक डक्ट और दी डक्ट ऑफ विल्सन। अब इसमें जो ब्लू कलर के एरोस दिखाए हैं, they are mainly denoting that the opening of the various pancreatic acini which are secreting pancreatic juice, and slightly away from them you can see small purple color dots, and this is the endocrine portion of the pancreas, mainly the islets of Langerhans जो पिंक कलर से दिखा है। सो वो मेनली कहाँ पर होते हैं, वो टेल एंड वाले रीजन पे एंडोक्राइन पोर्शन ऑफ पैनक्रियाज जो होता है वो ज्यादा होता है, एंड देन व्हाटएवर दे आर सिक्रीटिंग इज बीइंग रिलीज्ड इनटू द ब्लड। सो एंडोक्राइन पार्ट का मतलब ही यही है, सो मेनली दे विल सिक्रीट hormones directly into the blood which will act at a distant site. So we will mainly discuss today about the endocrine portion of the pancreas. So when we talk about the endocrine portion of the pancreas, it mainly consists of islets of Langerhans. These are the nests of the cells, and there are more than 1 million islets in the human pancreas, and they mainly consist of different types of cells. But more than 70% are the beta cells. Now blood flow that occurs, it proceeds from center of the islet to the periphery, and in the center of the islet, as you will see next, maximum amount of beta cells are there which produce insulin. So this insulin is able to inhibit glucagon from the peripherally present alpha cells. This is because the blood is flowing from the center to the periphery, and hence insulin is able to inhibit the glucagon release. So इसमें ये दिखाया है कि tail end पे mainly we have the pancreatic islets, and they have alpha cells which secrete glucagon, beta cells in maximum concentration secreting insulin, and very few delta cells. So 4 main type of cells are present. A cells or the alpha cells, they are less than 20% and they mainly secrete ग्लूकागॉन। सो आपको अगर एक हार्मोन याद रखना है कौन सी सेल क्या सिक्रीट कर रही है, तो मेन ग्लूकागॉन है, बट बट इसके अलावा ग्लूकागॉन के अलावा अल्फा सेल्स आल्सो रिलीज प्रोग्लूकागॉन एंड ग्लूकागॉन लाइक पेप्टाइड्स. Then we have beta cells. Beta cells are about 80% of the islet cells, or you can say 70 to 80%. They mainly release insulin, proinsulin, C-peptide, amylin, and GABA. Then delta cells are very few in number and they release somatostatin. The somatostatin होता है, it is a growth hormone, inhibitory hormone. GHIH, it is also released from the hypothalamus and from the gut also. Then there are PP cells or the pancreatic peptide cells, and they mainly release pancreatic polypeptide. So you should remember that alpha cells release glucagon and beta cells release insulin, and somatostatin is released from delta cells or the D cells. So this is a structure just focusing on the islets and the acini. So as you can see, the islets of Langerhans are mainly present in the core of the pancreas, and they are surrounded by pancreatic acini. Now, these pancreatic acini form the exocrine part, and they will mainly release the digestive enzymes. And in the center we have islets of Langerhans, and again you can see that majority is the beta cell, which are slight grayish in color, and they are present in the center, and only on the peripheries we have the blue color cells or the alpha cell, and very few delta cells and the PP cells are also present. So as we just discussed, blood will flow from center to the periphery. As a result, insulin which is released from the beta cell is able to inhibit the glucagon release from the alpha cell. So this is how the relation of various islet cell hormones is there. As you can see, insulin inhibits glucagon, so there is a dashed arrow, and the solid arrow means a positive feedback. So as you can see, glucagon is stimulating the release of insulin. So whenever the concentration of glucagon will rise in the body, it will stimulate the release of insulin. Now glucagon is mainly released whenever there is hypoglycemia, that is whenever the glucose concentration will decrease, it will stimulate the release of insulin, but insulin inhibits the release of glucagon. So there is a broken arrow. But again you can see that somatostatin inhibits both the release of insulin and glucagon, and it also inhibits the release of pancreatic polypeptide, but glucagon will stimulate the release of somatostatin. So this will help in keeping the blood glucose level to the optimum level. So even if there will be a slight fluctuation in the glucose level, suppose glucose level reduces, there is hypoglycemia, immediately glucagon will be released. It will stimulate insulin release also, so that this glucose will now enter into the muscle cells, and it will also cause the release of somatostatin, which will further inhibit both glucagon and insulin, so that the levels are maintained at an optimum level. So this can be asked in the Viva also. You should remember that there is an inverse relation. Now we will talk mainly about insulin. So insulin is a large polypeptide mainly consisting about 51 amino acids. So it has two chains, A chain and B chain. A chain consists of 21 amino acids and B chain consists of 30 amino acids. and both of these are linked together by disulfide bonds. Now, whenever there is release of insulin, so mainly in the beta cells, we have chromosome 11. Now, from this chromosome 11, there is synthesis of RNA. DNA converts into RNA. And finally, there is formation of protein, that is pre-pro-insulin. So, as you can see in the left side of the diagram, that initially there is release of pre-pro-insulin, and this consists of about 110 amino acids. Now this pre-pro-insulin will enter into endoplasmic reticulum. There is processing of it, and finally there is formation of pro-insulin, which consists of about 89 amino acids. Now this pro-insulin is further broken down into in the Golgi apparatus. So there is final processing of the pro-insulin in the Golgi apparatus, and there is formation of insulin and C-peptide. So the insulin consists of about 51 amino acids consisting of the A chain and the B chain, and this C-peptide again consists of roughly about 30 amino acids. So this is the structure of a proinsulin, which consists of the A chain, B chain and the C-peptide or the connecting peptide. So as you can see, this C-peptide or connecting peptide is shown in green color. It starts from about 31 amino acid to 83 amino acids. And the purple color is showing the A chain and the B chain, which are linked together by the disulfide bond. So in the Golgi apparatus, when the final processing will occur, then this green color chain or the C-peptide will get separated from the A chain and the B chain, and we will just have the A chain and B chain linked together, which is the insulin, main insulin. Now the C-peptide connects the A chain and the B chain. It helps in folding of A chain and B chain. Now this C-peptide has no biological activity, but it is secreted in equimolar ratio with insulin, because as we just discussed, proinsulin breaks into insulin and C-peptide in Golgi apparatus. So if you have to determine the beta cell activity, to know how the beta cells are functioning properly or not, then by knowing the level of C-peptide, it will directly reflect the beta cell activity. Now, this is important. What is the mechanism of insulin secretion? How the insulin is being released? So, glucose is the main stimulant of insulin release. Whenever there is hyperglycemia, so you must know that normal fasting level of glucose is 60 to 100 milligram per deciliter. Now, whenever the glucose level will rise above 100, that is, there is hyperglycemia, it will act as a stimulus for the insulin release. Then there can be other factors such as amino acids ingested with the meal or vagal stimulation. All these will again cause increase in the glucose, which will then stimulate insulin. Now, this is important that glucose will enter beta cells by GLUT2, that is glucose transporters 2, and this will result in further steps which will cause the exocytosis and release of insulin. So now just focus on these steps. These are very important. So number one, first step is, so this is mainly the structure of a beta cell. So you can imagine that it is a beta cell present in the islets. Now how the insulin is being released is, number one, there is glucose uptake. Glucose enters inside the beta cells through the GLUT2, that is glucose transporters 2. This is the first step. Now when the glucose enters inside the cell, it undergoes glycolysis and there is increase in the concentration of ATP. So this is the second step, that is concentration of ATP increases. Now the third step is that this ATP blocks the ATP sensitive potassium channel. That is the third step shown in blue color. That excess of ATP blocks the ATP sensitive potassium channel. So when these potassium channels are blocked, as you know that from the potassium channels, potassium efflux occurs, that is potassium moves to the outside and it results in negativity or hyperpolarization inside the cells. Now when these channels get blocked because of the higher concentration of ATP, this will result in depolarization of the cell, and then the fourth step will occur, shown in green color. There is opening of voltage gated calcium channels and calcium ions will rapidly enter inside the beta cell. Now the fifth step will occur, that is the exocytosis of the insulin will occur. All the granules, all the vesicles which had insulin stored in them will now be released outside. That is, there is exocytosis. So this is the fifth step. So all these steps are very important. A short note can come on the mechanism of insulin secretion. So you will mention first about the glucose uptake through GLUT2, then increased ATP, that is the second step. Closure of ATP sensitive potassium channels, which will result in depolarization, and hence the fourth step, that is the voltage gated calcium channels will open. And finally the fifth step, or the exocytosis of the insulin. Now this is mainly to show the various stimulators and the inhibitors of the insulin secretion. So stimulators are the factors which increase the glucose level. So whenever there will be hyperglycemia, insulin will be released. So if there is increased serum glucose, increased amino acids, increased free fatty acids, increased ketone bodies, all these are a stimulator of insulin secretion. And the inhibitor and other hormones which stimulate the insulin secretion are GIP, glucagon, gastrin, cholecystokinin, that is CCK, secretin, the vasoactive intestinal peptide VIP, epinephrine, and parasympathetic nervous system. All these will cause an increase in the insulin secretion. Now the inhibitors of insulin secretion will be just opposite. That is, if there is a decrease in the glucose concentration, decreased amino acids, decreased free fatty acid, hormones like somatostatin, epinephrine, and sympathetic nervous stimulation. All these are the inhibitors of insulin secretion. Now again in this flowchart it is shown that whenever you consume food, there is increase in the levels of glucose, amino acids, free fatty acid, potassium. All these will cause an increase in the insulin, which will stimulate their uptake and metabolism, and their levels will decrease. Now there is a question that is asked that why is oral glucose better than IV glucose? So as you must have observed that whenever a patient faints or a person faints, we immediately give oral glucose to that person. So the question arises, why is oral glucose better than IV glucose? This is because whenever you give oral glucose, orally जब भी हम देते हैं, now this glucose will enter into GIT, and even before its absorption, there is an earlier release of hormones from the GIT like cholecystokinin, glucagon, GIP, and all these, as you just read earlier, are the stimulators for insulin release. So insulin will be released slightly in advance even before this glucose is absorbed from the GIT. Now due to this, as soon as the glucose will be absorbed from GIT, due to this insulin, this glucose will rapidly enter inside the cells and the tissues, and hence the person will become fine. So always remember that oral glucose is better than IV glucose or the intravenous glucose, because when you give an oral glucose, it causes an increase in the level of insulin even before this glucose is absorbed because of release of various GI hormones in anticipation. Next. Now this graph mainly shows that there is a sigmoidal relation between the levels of plasma glucose and insulin response. So as you can see, when the glucose level is below 50 or below 60, then the amount of insulin released is almost zero. But as this glucose level rises, as the glucose level rises and it is between 50 to 100, then there is only a moderate amount of insulin release. But when this plasma glucose rises above the normal range, that is above 100 or above 150, then there is a sharp rise in the insulin. So when the glucose level is normal, then only minute amount of insulin is being released. And when it is low, that is below 50 or below 60, then no insulin is being released. And as the glucose level rises above 100 or above 150, you can see that there is a sharp increase in the insulin response. But this insulin response also attains a plateau at a glucose level of about 300 milligram per deciliter. That is, when the glucose is higher than this, then there is no further increase in the insulin response. And then this excess of glucose comes out through the urine. So as you must be remembering, that transport maximum for glucose was 375 milligram per minute. Now this mainly shows that there is a biphasic response in insulin release to glucose infusion. So initially you can see that there is a sharp peak in the first 10 minutes and then it comes back to normal. This is because the initial release of insulin is that insulin release which was already stored in the granules and it was present in the beta cells. So immediately whenever there is a rise in the glucose level, so initial response that occurs very rapidly, and the increase in insulin level that occurs very rapidly in first 10 minutes is because of the release of the already formed insulin or the already stored insulin. Then after 10 minutes, there is a gradual rise in insulin. So this second phase of slow rise is because now the new insulin is being formed and released. So there is a slow rise in the second phase. Next. Now, how does this insulin act? Mechanism of action. It is mainly through insulin receptors, and they are enzyme linked receptor due to the activation of tyrosine kinase. And most important is that this insulin will cause translocation of GLUT4 receptors through the plasma membrane so that glucose can enter inside the cells. So here mainly it is shown that the insulin receptor mainly consists of two subunits, alpha subunit and the beta subunit. So this alpha subunit is present extracellularly, which will bind with insulin. This will activate the beta receptors, that is the beta subunit of the insulin receptor, which are associated with tyrosine kinase. Now this will result in activation of insulin receptor substrates, and there is phosphorylation of enzymes which will number one cause glucose transport, second protein synthesis, fat synthesis, glycogen synthesis, then growth and gene expression. So all these things will occur because of this insulin. Now this part is very important, how insulin is causing glucose absorption. So earlier you read that how glucose was causing insulin secretion, that was through GLUT2 type of receptors. Now how this insulin in the beta cells, now this insulin causes the absorption of glucose in the muscles and various other tissues. So that is why we require insulin for the glucose absorption. So glucose will not be absorbed if there is no insulin or there is less amount of insulin. That is why diabetes occurs. So this step is important, how this insulin is causing glucose absorption. So the first step is that insulin will act on its receptors, which have two subunits, alpha and beta. As soon as insulin binds to its receptors, they become active, and then there is second step, that is signal transduction will occur, and various steps of insulin receptor substrate will occur, like gene expression and growth regulation. Now due to this signal transduction, there will be third step, that is the glucose transporters which were present in the cytoplasm now move towards the plasma membrane. So initially these GLUT4 receptors or the glucose type 4 receptors, they were present in the cytoplasm. Now as soon as this insulin receptor substrate is activated, these 4 receptors move from cytoplasm to the plasma membrane, and there is activation of the third step, that is glucose from outside enters inside the cell, and finally there is fourth step, that is glucose utilization and glycogen, lipid or protein synthesis. So this is the mechanism of action of insulin. This is important. Earlier what we read about GLUT2 was how the insulin was being released. This GLUT4 receptors is how the insulin is causing absorption of glucose in muscles and various other tissues. Next. Now there are various type of glucose transporters and SGLT. You just have to remember GLUT2 and GLUT4. GLUT2 is present in beta cell and GLUT4 is insulin dependent, and it causes absorption of glucose in various muscles, adipose tissue, skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle. Next. Just remember the position of GLUT2 and GLUT4 for now. So the areas where insulin facilitates glucose uptake is skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, adipose tissue, leukocytes, the lens of the eye, pituitary, fibroblast. So almost at every place, this insulin is facilitating glucose uptake. But again, there are few places which are not dependent on insulin for glucose uptake. These are brain, kidney tubules, intestinal mucosa, and RBC. This is because at these places there is no blood flow. They have GLUT1 or other types of glucose transporters which are not dependent on insulin. So this is important because at these places we need rapid absorption of glucose. So they are not dependent on insulin so that they can absorb glucose rapidly. So these are brain, kidney tubules, intestinal mucosa and RBCs. At these places, there is no dependence on insulin for glucose absorption. Now the actions of insulin. So mainly there are three main actions of insulin. Metabolic effects on cell growth and development and on iron transport. Now the metabolic effects are on carbohydrate, protein and fat. On cell growth and development, it is through insulin-like growth factors, protein anabolism, that is it causes protein synthesis. So all these will result in growth and development. Then it also facilitates various iron transport like that of magnesium, phosphate from kidneys also and from other places also. So mainly insulin is an anabolic hormone because it promotes fuel storage, that is anabolism, and it prevents catabolism or the breakdown. Then it causes increase in the glucose uptake in about 80% of the body cells, as we just discussed, and also in the fat cells, but not neurons in the brain, because as just discussed, in the brain there is an insulin independent glucose uptake. In the liver, insulin stimulates glycogen synthesis and storage. It inhibits glucose output by inhibiting gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis. It also promotes formation of fat and fatty acid precursors. Then on the fat, insulin stimulates lipogenesis. That is, it causes formation of lipids. It leads to increased synthesis of VLDL and increasing the fat stored. Then it causes increase in the glucose uptake, both in the muscle and fat, by causing rapid translocation of GLUT4 receptors to the surface of these cells. In the muscle, insulin causes glycogen and protein synthesis and inhibits glycogen catabolism. So if you talk about the metabolic actions of insulin on proteins it is mainly by causing protein anabolism. So they will favor protein synthesis and they will inhibit the breakdown of proteins into amino acid. Then when you talk about metabolic effects of insulin on fat, then it is mainly they cause lipogenesis and they cause an increased amount of fat storage. Then their effect on carbohydrate metabolism is that they cause a glucose uptake in all the cells of the body. Wherever there is insulin dependent glucose uptake, they stimulate glycogen synthesis in the liver. So in the liver, they will inhibit gluconeogenesis. That is, there is no new synthesis of glucose. There is no glycogenolysis or breakdown of glycogen, but rather glucose will be stored as glycogen in the liver and in other places it will cause an increased amount of glucose uptake. and other actions were that overall it will stimulate the growth and development, and it also favors ion transport. Now this chart is mainly to show the actions of insulin. So as you can see that in brain it stimulates hunger, that is it will cause an increased amount of food intake, but in peripheral tissues it will cause glucose absorption, so it will increase glucose metabolism, increase glycogen synthesis, increase muscle mass because it also causes protein synthesis, but it also increases mitochondrial dysfunction. On the liver, it will cause a decrease in the glucose synthesis. So mainly all the glucose will be converted into glycogen. So increased glycogen synthesis, increased lipid accumulation. So when the excess of glucose is converted into glycogen and it exceeds the normal limit, so whatever normal amount of glycogen is present in the liver, when that limit is exceeded by more than 5%, then this excess of glucose will be converted into lipids, and there is increased lipid accumulation, increased inflammation. In the adipose tissue, it will cause glucose metabolism, lipogenesis, and decreased lipolysis. So overall level of glucose, fatty acids, and amino acids in the plasma will decrease. So as we just discussed earlier, that the stimulators for insulin were when there is increased glucose, amino acid, or fatty acid. Insulin will then be released and it will cause a decrease in these levels. Next. Now, how this insulin is causing various actions is that, so in the liver, it is stimulating, all the green color arrows show that it is stimulating these enzymes, and the red color arrow show that insulin is inhibiting these enzymes. So if you focus just on the liver, so you can see that insulin is stimulating the conversion of glucose phosphate into glycogen by stimulating glycogen synthase enzyme. So insulin stimulates glycogen synthase, and this is how it is promoting glycogenesis. Then it also stimulates the enzyme phosphofructokinase PFK and pyruvate kinase, that is PK, so that this glucose is converted into CO2 and there is release of ATP. But it is inhibiting the enzymes like pyruvate carboxylase so that there is no new synthesis of glucose. So it is inhibiting gluconeogenesis, and it is also inhibiting glycogenolysis by inhibiting the enzyme glycogen phosphorylase, which will break this glycogen into glucose phosphate. So it mainly stimulates enzyme glycogen synthetase to cause glycogenesis, and also stimulates the enzyme PFK, that is phosphofructokinase, and pyruvate kinase. So overall, there is less release of glucose from the liver. Then when it causes glucose uptake in the muscles, as shown on the left side, it stimulates the enzyme glucokinase so that in the muscle this glucose is converted into ATP and there is release of energy, and also the glucose will be stored as glycogen. So by stimulating these enzymes, then you can see AA means for amino acid, that is it is causing an increased uptake of amino acid in the muscle, but there is decreased release of amino acid from the muscle, and also the amino acid release from the liver is reduced. Then on the right side, you can see that in adipose tissue, there is glucose uptake and it is converted into triglycerides, and there is less release of glycerol from the adipose tissues. That is, the release of glycerol is inhibited. Then all the free fatty acids are converted into triglycerides and lipoproteins by stimulating the enzyme lipoprotein lipase, and the lipolysis is inhibited by stimulating the enzyme hormone sensitive lipase. So you must be aware about these enzymes from your biochemistry classes. So here it is just shown that insulin stimulates the particular group of enzymes which are shown by green color arrow, and it inhibits the enzymes shown by red color arrow. So this is how the insulin is producing its metabolic effects on carbohydrate, proteins and fat. So